Hi, welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy June. We're almost tomorrow's Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth for those who celebrate. This is a really special color in the conversation for a number of reasons this month. I am so delighted to have with me three of the 12 fellows that we have in our inaugural Alliance Fellowship, all of who have done our dynamic people, are doing dynamic work. And this is special for me because this will be my last color in the conversation as a director of the Alliance. And the fellowship program was a seed of a thought that I had when I started as a director in 2022. And so I feel like these women that you see on the screen before you have um, been part of like the giving birth to this baby, to this dream, right? They are like literally the first time we met together, I cried when I saw all of their faces on the screen because you know how you think of something that was just once a thought and it's coming to a fruition, and now it's coming toward the end of their fellowship year. And so we just want to check in. I want you to get to know the kind of amazing people that we have in this fellowship, and we can talk about their experience as fellows a little bit. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then we'll get into a little bit of a conversation about their background and about the fellowship and how that's been for them. Okay, I'm going to start with Kimberly. Kimberly, go ahead and tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for the introduction. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Kimberly Polanco. I am a licensed social worker, a birth and abortion doula, and also a childbirth educator based in New York City. So I specialize in supporting families through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and just reproductive decision making, especially within marginalized communities. At the moment, I am a social worker with the Bonded by Baby program at Mount Sinai Hospital, where I facilitate postpartum support groups. And I'm also a prenatal group facilitator with a nonprofit organization called Nido de Esperanza, right here in my community of Washington Heights.
Oh, love it. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Lola.
Hello, Director Clark. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Lola Price. I'm a certified postpartum doula and perinatal mental health professional. I am a resident of North Carolina. I serve families in Eastern North Carolina. I am a business owner with Love Lola Care Services. I provide postpartum care to new families within my community. We serve a lot of military families. We're right outside of the military base. And I'm also a regional liaison for Region 10. I work with the PSI Postpartum Support International Chapter of North Carolina. I'm serving as a regional liaison as well as a board member.
Thank you. All right, Lola. Thank you so much. Okay, Jenise.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today. So my name is Jenise Catalina. I am based out of Springfield, Massachusetts, so Western Mass area. I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker. A lot of the roles that I have are kind of different, shifting, but I am a leadership team member of the Women of Color Health Equity Collective, and so we're a very small nonprofit women of color-led organization, really focused on building community capacity around anti-racism, anti-oppressive work with institutions. I also am the founder and clinician in my private practice, Kindred Healing, where we focus a lot around intergenerational trauma, racial trauma, and perinatal mental health, and that intersection of race, ethnicity, gender, specifically working with BIPOC families and families with young children as well. And then I also am co-chair for the Springfield Maternal Child Health Commission, which is a collective impact group in Springfield, really focused on addressing the inequities within our city, especially impacting families with young children, infants, maternal mortality. We are what's considered a minority majority city, so we are predominantly a BIPOC community.
Oh, wow. Okay. a minority majority city. Oh, that's really great. So you see that these are three people that just are not busy at all, right? Like just don't have their hands in anything. No, but you all are very, very busy, but busy doing the work. I presume that you know you love, and so I'll start with you, Jenise. Like, how did you get started in the perinatal field?
It was more of a mix of personal and professional. I myself had experienced perinatal anxiety and depression with my first child. I was pregnant at 24 and kind of wasn't expecting all the things to change that were changing in that time. Didn't really have a lot of kind of peer support as well in that. And so going through that experience and left undiagnosed and untreated, and then coming into the work of social services, and I was able to get a position as a home visitor for new parents. And that really opened my eyes to what I had experienced and what I was going through. And so I was able to really start learning more through that position. And I just kind of fell in love with the work. I developed a passion of like, why don't we talk about this? Why aren't we naming this more? Why aren't we bringing this into our community and making more people aware of it, and not making us feel like, you know, as individuals, it's our issue and there's something wrong with us. And so from there, I really kind of took it on as a mission to focus on that work and to spread the awareness and to think about how we not only look at diagnosing and treatment, but really think about how we build community around it.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, for so many of us, this work is so personal. It's a personal experience that has brought us into the work. What about for you, Kimberly? What brought you into the work?
I entered the perinatal health field through my work as a social worker. I was actually a social worker at the nonprofit organization where I now facilitate the prenatal groups. And I was serving families at that time from 3 months postpartum until their children turned 3 years of age. And in the work with the families, I was hearing their experiences and seeing how they were navigating systems that just didn't reflect their needs, their values, and their experiences. And so I then became a birth doula to educate myself more about the processes that our families were experiencing, and just being able to also provide that education because a lot of the families I was serving weren't given that education, right? They weren't being told what to expect when they, went to the hospital, or, they weren't using language services to really understand their frustrations or their questions or their concerns. And so as a provider of color, I was like, I need to bridge this gap. Like I can do this. I became a birth doula and just really started doing this work, not only to support families emotionally and practically, but also to advocate for more equitable and culturally attuned models of care. And so the nonprofit now begins providing families care from the prenatal period until the child turns 3 years of age, because it's so necessary.
That's so great. So great. What about you, Lola? What brought you into the work?
Similarly, it was very similar to Kimberly. I'm sorry. I interned at my local pregnancy center that was a nonprofit in our community during my college capstone. And during that time, I spent a lot of time working with families. And after the program finished, I asked our director, what happens to our families after they give birth? Where do they go? Where if they need resources? And there wasn't really an answer for that. It was always told that they can come back and we can help them the best that we could. But I knew that there was definitely more that needed to be done. And so that's what caused me to become a postpartum doula. And so I got trained, and I just realized that in that area where I was living in Eastern North Carolina, a lot of rural areas, that wasn't common, having postpartum doulas come and offer care, especially come into your home and offer nights. And so I packed up and I went to Houston, and I lived in Houston for about 2 years, and I worked up under some seasoned doulas and just worked with a lot of different families from a lot of different cultural backgrounds. As you know, Houston is a metropolitan city, so you get to meet so many different people and like the cultures, and just learning about how to hold space during the postpartum period, working with many families. And just during that time, I realized that I needed more. And so I looked into PSI, and that's where I got trained as a PMHC. And I realized that collaborated and worked very well as a doula. And so once I got that done, I ended up coming back home to North Carolina and started hitting the ground running, working with families. And so that's what really pushed me to get into perinatal mental.
I love that. Did you know what a doula, like, did you know about what a doula was, what a doula did when you were doing that internship?
Initially, no. I was really helping a lot of families and my friends in the community, and I really loved it. But I had no idea that it was actually a profession, helping them home from the hospital. And I was a night owl, so I was up taking care of the baby, making sure they were okay. So when I found out like that postpartum doula was actually a real job, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so it was great. And also just spending time talking to my family, like even my dad, he's like, what's this doula thing that you're trying to do? Like, I've never heard of it. And so just talked to them and explained, and they were like, oh, that's great. Like, that's very useful.
All right, great. I love this. So you all have you have some experience in your field. Some of you have like taken a journey to get to where you are. What made you want to apply for this fellowship? Kimberly, we'll start with you. What made you want to be a fellow?
So similar to Lola, I learned about PSI a few years ago, just wanted to gain more knowledge about perinatal mental health. And so I've known about PSI, I've done the trainings, I became a PMHC. And so when I saw the opportunity to be part of the PSI Alliance Fellowship, I was like, I need to do this. Like, this is it. I wanted to deepen my knowledge, right? And as a professional of color, it's not often that we get access to spaces where like we get to explore the different intersections that we're exploring with our cohorts, right? For example, I'm in neurodivergence. Explore it with intention and care. And so I saw it as an opportunity to grow academically, professionally, and personally, while also being able to connect with other professionals of color who understand what it means to do this work. And so it was really, I really wanted to be part of building something that felt rigorous in the work, you know, the work that we've been doing, but also rooted in community. And that was really important to me.
I love that. I think I'm so glad you said that. Part of what my personal mission and passion has been, having been like a hospital chaplain in a very on the mother baby units in a very white hospital system, but in a very multicultural city. Like, I'm in Chicago, and where the hospital was located, we're like downtownish, right? So it's like they draw this intersection of people, but the staff didn't really reflect like the intersection, like the diversity of the patient population. And so I often felt like, although my department was fairly diverse, like working with the other professionals across the interdisciplinary team, I was often the only person of color, right? And so it can be a very isolating experience when you are trying to advocate for these moms of color, when you see the bias that they're experiencing in their birthing experience and their care experiences in the NICU, and everybody is making you feel like you're doing too much. You're seeing things that are not there, right? And so you get exhausted, feeling like, why doesn't anybody care about this or see it the same way? And so part of like my strong desire to develop this fellowship was for you all to have spaces, because I know a lot of you work either independently or you work in institutions where you might be one of the only, right? And so that connection and a way of just having that connection and being validated and being seen and having your concerns validated was really important to me. So I'm glad to hear you say that, Kimberly. Yeah. Jenise, what about you? What made you want to become a fellow?
I think very similar. I had always been a fan of PSI and the Alliance, and I was always following the work, and I had attended a few trainings. And so when this opportunity came up, I kind of contemplated it just because of, the requirements and wanting to make sure that I could dedicate the time to it and really put the energy into it. And after going back and forth, I was like, you know what, how often does this opportunity come up to be able to do this and to have the opportunity to attend more workshops, especially specific around marginalized communities and addressing systemic inequities and being in a space with other people of color and be able to learn in a space where I feel, psychologically safe and with like-minded people
Mhm.
wasn't something that comes up a lot. And so I decided that this was the opportunity to really go ahead and do that and to have that opportunity for my own growth, but also thinking about how I move forward in this work in my own community too. And us within our community not really having a lot of people, clinicians of color, that are also kind of focused in the perinatal mental health world as well. And so really wanted to be able to take all of this to also enhance my community and think about how I can do that, and to have a shared space and even just getting to know so many different people as part of this process. And I've been really loving that opportunity.
That's great. Yeah. What about you, Lola?
Um, I've always looked for opportunities to just be able to collaborate with other providers, and especially BIPOC providers. And I felt like during this time, like with everything just being so uncertain, this has opened up a safe space and an opportunity for us to take that path that's like least traveled right now, that people aren't really looking into or feel comfortable speaking about. And so being able to come together with other perinatal professionals just to have that conversation and to look into those things, and hopefully like we found some great things in our research. And yeah, so I was super excited when this opportunity came, because I'm like, this is right up my alley, this is my niche. So yeah.
Love that. I love that. And it's I want to she's not here right now on the live stream, but Shamika Tumblin is the professional development program manager for the Alliance. And like, while the Alliance was my idea and this is my baby, she really kind of took the baby and shaped the baby, and has been like the one rearing the baby, if you will. So when I had the idea, she said, what if we make this, like, put some, like, a more research spin to it? Um, because one of the things that I do know, right, is that research and publication impacts practice, right? And so the fellowship, though, is kind of focused this year on gathering like what's already out there, right, in terms of a literature review, and then hopefully helping through your lenses as fellows, helping the field to identify where there are gaps. Like, we've seen this, but there's a whole lot missing about this. And so to that end, there three there are three, right? There are three capstone areas. And I think each one of you is in a different one of those capstone areas, right? And so, Lola, what you're in the capstone research project that they're looking at paternal mental health, or the mental health of male partners. So tell me, what drew you to that particular capstone?
Working with fathers just during postpartum care, a lot of times there's not space for them. A lot of times fathers are wondering, like, where do I fit in? I'm usually being the strong one, the rock for the family during this time. And so no one really checks on me. Nobody really asks, like, how am I feeling? How am I doing? And a lot of times going into the homes, like just turning to dad for a moment and checking in, like it can mean so much. And so knowing that this is something that isn't always looked at, that was what really drew me in, because I'm like, hey, like we need to look to see how this affects the family as a whole. And then let's see how we can support dads. What interventions are working, which ones aren't? What are some things that we can incorporate that they would prefer? And so I felt like, in a sense, it definitely gave dads a voice. even just through our research, having a dad that was active duty military, stationed far away from family, dad of color. I was a premature NICU baby, and so having to be airlifted from a place that's already not home, to have to sit in the NICU for about 2 months with your baby, that could be something that's a major stressor. And so even thinking back during that time, like asking him, like, how did you feel? Like, what support were in place for you? What were some things that you wish you had? Those were some things that I really took into consideration when I got ready to do my research project, and especially just picking what cohort I wanted to be a part of, because this was something that was near and dear to me. So
yeah, I love that. Thank you. So your dad was a military father, military parent.
yes, ma'am. Actually, my mom and dad are both 20-year Air Force veterans, so they both were active duty at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I love this because, we don't think about what the partner is going through. We don't think, everybody doesn't know that 1 in 10, at least 1 in 10 fathers or male partners experience postpartum depression, right? And I tend to think that that number is low and that there's underreporting, both because, like you said, like the narrative that we have about mental health in general as people of color is that we have to be strong through adversity, that there's no place for like sadness. And even if I'm sad or I feel down or I feel helpless, right, I can't express that to anybody because that's a show and a sign of weakness. And then you layer all of kind of the societal expectations about masculinity. And then I can't imagine, like, as a military, dad, like there's these additional expectations about what it looks like to be tough, right? And so I agree with you. Like, it's so important. Nobody asks the dad how they're doing. And so, yeah, that really stood out when you said that, Lola. Yeah, thank you. Kimberly, you're in the neurodivergence
Cohort.
cohort, the capstone, and you all are looking at some things around neurodivergence and people of color during this period. What drew you into that?
So what drew me to the neurodiversity capstone was, so at the hospital, we've had some families who are identify as neurodivergent. Requests for support and providers not knowing how to support them. There's a lack of education surrounding sensory overwhelmness, communication differences, executive function struggles. And a lot of the families that were coming were feeling misunderstood and completely overlooked during that perinatal period. And so I really wanted to, it was an interest of mine to really explore how could we reimagine care that affirms these families, centers their lived experiences, and addresses the intersections of neurodiversity, especially within the BIPOC community. So it really felt like a place where I can contribute and kind of exemplify, like, neurodivergent people become parents too.
Yeah.
And they deserve care that sees them, honors them, and meets their needs. And more importantly, seeing that a lot of the families that I have served have also received a neurodivergent diagnosis in the postpartum period. So not through pregnancy. So dealing with that shock and realization and how to navigate that was something that really stood out to me. And hopefully in the research, we are able to really show that this is something that is needed to be supported.
I love that. I will tell you selfishly, like, it's not even selfish. It's like part of the reason I wanted us to take this up is in the fellowship was because as I was finishing my clinical practicum last year for my degree program, I was in a specialization in the program for maternal mental health, and I kept getting like neurodivergent clients, right? One of whom I'm still working with to today, but I kept getting like these clients who are neurodiverse, and I felt like I can research and think about interventions and what's good for helping with whatever the identified goal is. But when you have a pregnant person who says, I'm about to be a parent and I don't understand how to connect to my emotions, right? I don't always get it when somebody is trying to convey something to me, and I'm worried about being a parent and not being able to pick up on cues from my child as they grow. And that in itself, like being one thing, but then that causing certain levels of anxiety and that kind of thing. Like I just felt, I was like, oh, I need some help. Like, and I can only imagine, like, because I think we're just coming into a point in time in the medical and mental health fields where people are really being accurately diagnosed. I think growing up, probably there were a lot of neurodiverse people that I went to school with. We understood ADD is what we used to call it, right? Not ADHD when I'm aging myself, but we understood and we didn't even fully understand like the manifestations of what that was. It was just the kid that wouldn't sit down or the kid that was always in trouble, right? And so I really believe that there are probably more people who are neurodiverse than what we had previously understood. And like you said, these people have full lives and they have children too. They become parents too, right? And if it's difficult for someone who is neurotypical to navigate this period, then that it can definitely be difficult. And providers who work with people need to understand.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Andrea.
Jenise, so you're in the capstone on racial inequities, and given all the work that you already do, like it feels like we can see the natural connection. What was it that really drew you to that particular capstone?
Yeah, I think, as you said, a lot of the work that I have done has been based kind of in this realm. But I think more specifically, I've been trying to expand my mind and do a lot more work around kind of decolonized mental health and decolonized parenting, especially decolonized parenting. And so, really thinking about how our parenting has been influenced by ideologies that were kind of created by European white men, and how that influences our own physical and mental well being as parents and shows up in our parenting, and as well as addressing intergenerational trauma and how that influences parenting across. And so really starting to kind of unpack that and make those connections. And so when it came to this capstone, it really allowed me the opportunity to expand and kind of dive a little bit deeper into those ways in which mental health has been colonized, and how we really kind of receive treatment based on kind of a scripted Eurocentric way, rather than really thinking about how we're supporting people and becoming more kind of attached and exploring around ancestral roots and practices. And even the way that we've become more individualistic rather than staying with kind of our collective roots in raising families and having families. And so it was really an opportunity to kind of start unpacking that and seeing, what work has been done, what research is there or isn't. And also for us, in my cohort has been amazing. And for us, really also kind of like just bringing each other new information and challenging each other in the way of our thinking, and the ways that our minds maybe have been colonized too, and being able to unpack that a little bit in our own process as we do this work. And so it's been really beautiful and such a growth opportunity to be able to continue in that and to strengthen that. And even the process and what we've learned through the research, like, is just, I think, mind blowing, and continue to be like, what do we do next? What's going to happen next after this too?
I know. I love that question. I'm going to ask that again in a minute. But I really am interested in what you were saying, and I wonder if you all had touched on it, because as a parent, I guess I'm postpartum forever now, right? Because he's 11, but I had him. So, but he's a little brown boy, right? And so we think of all of these the ways that we have inherited like the ideas of what a parent child relationship should be, what we think about how it reflects like these very patriarchal, like very Eurocentric ideas of power, and voice. And even as I'm thinking about working with my clients who are mostly people of color, um, hearing like what I heard as a child, like children should be seen and not heard, and those kind of things, right? And so there's a way of not empowering your child's voice. But I think about this all the time in the context of that balance of not squelching this little person's like their voice, their power, their personality, but understanding that we still live in this very patriarchal, increasingly hostile environment against people of color. Um, and that there are these kind of paradigms of power and expectation. And in order for him to be physically safe, right, that there are times when he can't be his full little self, who asks questions, because that might, you know, he gets pulled over by the police, um and they're not going to understand why he's asking questions, right? They're not going to understand. So then how do I start to teach that at home about respect for authority, respect for power? My son is hard pressed with the "because I said so," right? That he is hard pressed with that. Like he does not, it just does not make sense to him. But and so most of the time I don't use that unless I'm really tired and I don't have anything else in the parenting tool bag, right, to pull out. I'm like, I don't have any other reason. Just do it because I said so. Um, and so I'm interested in like the conversations that'll come from what you all discovered, because you talked about this decolonial approach to both mental health and parenting. Like, and some of it when you're still living in a space where it's not safe to necessarily always operate in those ways. It's not safe for your children, and that's a constant tension for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And being able to kind of hold that and
Mhm.
also think about, we've talked about the decolonized piece, but then how do we also support that kind of liberation parenting? Right.
Yeah.
So how do we move from like fear-based parenting, because there
Yes.
is real fear, there are real things, and how do we instead kind of focus on more like supporting critical thinking, right? And awareness, and what does that look like in our parenting?
Yeah. I love that. It is good. That's good. I'd be helpful. Like if somebody can just give me a handbook for like what to do with this little person as he grows into a young man, knocking on teen years, like it's a whole new level of maternal anxiety. All right. Go ahead, Lola.
Just like thinking about like even like my capstone and then everything that's being said here, I think back to a time with my godson when he was a lot younger, and in the home during the time he was playing with his cousins and they had baby dolls, and his mom and dad kind of were going back and forth like he shouldn't be playing with a baby doll, and his dad was very upset with them. And it was a time where I was just there with his mom, and she happened to ask me, she was like, Lola, what do you think about it? Because during the time I was studying human development, family science. And I just asked her, I was like, he may be a dad one day, and daddies take care of babies. And sometimes we have to consider like, we may have been raised a certain way for so long and to portray ourselves in a certain way, but you think about it, how that may affect long term, where, I mean, other generations may have felt, oh, well, it's just the woman that takes care of the baby. I don't have to be a part. I don't have to do those things. I've been told since I was little, boys don't take care of babies. Boys don't have to participate in those things. It's not for boys. And so I told her, I said, the only way that we can kind of change that mindset or that thought process is when we kind of look at it from a different view. And so I said, as people of color, that's something that we have to sometimes evaluate. Like some things that we were taught maybe might not always be the right thing. And so it's like, we hope that he will be a great dad one day. So.
I love that. I love that shift in perspective. Yeah. And I also think about sometimes it is just developmentally appropriate, right, for kids to explore stuff. It's my son used to go into my jewelry cabinet. He would like kill me if he heard me saying this. He used to go into my jewelry box and like he put on all my necklaces and my bracelets and like drape stuff around his head. Like I have pictures of doing that when he's about 6, 7, 8 years old. And when he was smaller and he would do that, like my ex-husband would say, "No, that's mommy's. Boys don't wear that." And I'm just like, just let him explore. Like and put he likes it because it's shiny. When it clicks together, it makes noise. It's to me an expression of he sees mommy doing it and I love mommy and I admire mommy. And so I'm gonna do what mommy does. It's not gonna mean, and even if he does want to end up wearing necklaces and earrings out in public, so what? It doesn't make him less of a person, right? Yeah. Love that. So why do you all think that programs like this one are important? Like, why do you think it would be important for somebody to consider being a fellow the next time we offer this, Kimberly?
Programs like this are absolutely important. They're essential, I want to say. I think that being able to, they create intentional spaces for professionals of color to, I felt like I was able to grow in this fellowship. I was able to reflect on a lot of things that my peers have mentioned here. And also the capacity to lead, I think is something that I was also able to learn about myself. I feel like you mentioned, Andrea, earlier, right, that too often when we're doing this work, it's in isolation or within systems that weren't built for us. So I feel like having fellowships like this affirm our presence, right? Challenge those dominant narratives in maternal mental health that we've all mentioned today, and help us understand and know that we can be leaders, right? That we're equipped to make change, not just in the direct service that we're able to provide families, but also in research and policy and systems transformation, which I think are areas that I, personally could not have seen myself probably doing before. So I feel like having models like this, having fellowships like this model what it is like to invest in our communities by investing in those who are serving them. And I think that was what really highlighted this for me.
I love it. Jenise, what about you? Anything that adds to that? Why are these kinds of things important?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything Kimberly said. I think we oftentimes will talk about how we don't have enough professionals of color, especially in the maternal mental health piece or perinatal mental health focus. And so there's a reason why, right? There's not enough learning opportunities. There isn't a lot of these like specialty area focuses that are accessible to. And when we think about the economic hardship or economic opportunities that kind of limit people in these ways. And so having this fellowship not only allowed for that and kind of took away some of those barriers, but it also created a space where you could build more of that kind of collective care approach, right? Able to work with people in different areas of work. It wasn't just all, mental health clinical based. It was all of us in different sectors supporting families in different ways. And I think that was the most kind of piece that I appreciated the most, was being able to work with other people in different sectors and bring together our experiences and learn from each other.
I love that. I'm glad you said that. I was thinking about this as I look at Lola. Like, why is this important? Why do you think this was important for you? Why would it be important for doulas or other like allied health professionals to get involved in something like this?
Because there are a lot of organizations and institutions that are looking for people that have this specialized experience and the cultural competence to actually bridge the gaps, because it affects those that they're serving. They're the special population, and they're looking for someone, as Kimberly stated, to lead the way. A lot of times they're like, okay, there's something here that we're not quite meeting the mark on. We need to meet the needs better of those that we're serving, but who do we reach out to? And a lot of times they're looking for those that have training, those that have the education, those that can show like, hey, I've spent time researching and looking into this and I'm passionate about it. And those are going to be the people that they call forward to help them lead the way to provide better care for people in the community. And so despite also being a doula and working in home privately, times will come where they will ask us to come into those hospital spaces because they're like, we don't know. And a lot of times if a person doesn't know, they may not feel comfortable asking, but being prepared and having the space to participate as a fellow has definitely open the door to allow you to be able to come in and say, hey, I know I can help. Let me kind of shine some light on some things that can make a difference. And so
I love that. How has it been for you, Lola, working, like Jenise said, part of their enriching experience that she's had in the fellowship is working with people from other disciplines. How has that been for you, working with not just doulas, but working with other professionals across disciplines?
I love the collaboration, being able to get another perspective. A lot of times working as a doula, I may work in home. And so sometimes we lack that clinical side where we don't quite see how the client may present in a clinical setting compared to at home. We may see something a little bit different, or we might see more. And so being able to have that conversation with our other cohort and fellows to ask them like, hey, are you seeing some of the same things that I'm seeing? And if they say like yes or no, we can be like, okay, well, let's look a little bit deeper into this. And then also just building onto our literature review, we can add more subtopics and be like, okay, this is something that we found that was interesting. And so just being able to compare and contrast what we see in our different professions has been very, very helpful and insightful.
Oh, great. Good. I'm glad to hear it. What about you, Kimberly? What about, is there a doula in your cohort?
It's me.
Oh, you are the doula. You are all the things. What's going on?
I mean, for me, it's been amazing because I think my peers in my cohort are mainly they're clinical social workers. They have their own private practices. I don't have that yet, but being able to hear the kind of work that they're doing in private practice has been amazing. I think it has allowed me to, again, like grow as a professional, being able to collaborate with other professionals of color who also share a commitment to equity and perinatal mental health, and seeing how that, is in their work. I also really value our meetings together. I feel like we fill each other's cup. Like we come in and we're talking to each other about like how we're doing, and being able to just check in with each other and then dive into the literature. We're talking about ourselves, and then we're talking about sensory sensitivity and neurodivergence. But being able to have that has been extremely helpful in bridging that.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you all have found that the fellowship space, because you convene on your own in your cohorts according to capstone, but then there are times whenever all the fellows come together, right? And I know that there have been times when this particular climate in this country right now is not, it's a trip. I'm just gonna say that, right? And you don't always know where the safe spaces are to talk about like how the climate is affecting the people you work with and how the climate is affecting you, right? And so for this to have been a space for you all, for at least one time a month for a little while, that you can get together and talk about without fear of judgment or any kind of like retaliation or anything, right? To feel seen and heard as individuals, but also part of a collective. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I go back to what Jenise said, right? Feeling psychologically safe in our spaces to be able to talk about these things that, again, you mentioned are impacting the families that we're working with. And it's really hard sometimes for us to, provide that support. And when we're also navigating the climate that we're also living in.
It's hard. It is hard. Yeah. I think about that even working in a hospital during COVID and not being able, like, I couldn't work from home. Like we couldn't work from home. I'm at the bedside. And so you're having this parallel experience with people, because this is something that was affecting everybody. And so we didn't know a whole lot about it. We didn't know how it was transmitted. We worked for a whole month before there was a mask mandate, right? So I'm walking into people's rooms and I don't know, I didn't see my kid for a whole month because I didn't want him to get sick. And so you're having these parallel experiences, but then also as a person of color, right? Living in an environment right now where things are not hospitable, right? And so being able to, you can't process that your own stuff with your client or the patients that you work with, right? So having colleagues to be able to process that with, I think is essential to your well-being. Yeah. So what is one thing that you think you're going to take away from this experience that you feel like is something that you don't know, without this experience, you don't know if you would have gotten this? Jenise, what is something that she's like, oh no, she called me first.
I think a couple of things for me. Like one was even just the research aspect. Research was not an area that I was strong in at all. And I told everybody at the beginning, like I kind of felt like a deer in headlights. I was like, what is this? What are these words that we're using? What is this process? And so once I was able to kind of gab some grace from my cohort, and they supported me through it, and I was just like, listen, I'm the person. If you tell me what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, I will do that, and I will learn more through that. And so they were really supportive in that, and so I learned a whole lot around research and through this process and creating our presentation. And then also it just brought me like this, I think, this reaffirmation or renewed clarity around just the work that I'm doing and really wanting to focus more on decolonizing mental health and bringing in more of that liberation health, liberation psychology, and parenting. And so I want to dive deeper into that, and see that impact and how that can work and happen. And so that's kind of where I learned, but I also want more. I'm like craving to continue on and learning more in that way.
I love it. I love it. That's good. It's like sparking a fire, huh? It's yeah. That's great. Lola, what about you? What's one thing you feel like you're going to take away from this?
I'll definitely say the research has opened my eyes in the perspective of, we can say that there are gaps and that there's some things that need to be done, but until you're really searching through those search engines, you can type in different topics like perinatal mental health or postpartum depression and fathers, different subtopics. But the moment that you start adding terms like BIPOC, persons of color, Black, Indigenous, those terms, the numbers will go down from thousands to maybe 13 articles to 5 articles to 2 articles at times, just depending on what terms you put in. And so that really opened my eyes, because I'm like, hey, we're trying to do a literature review on literature that is not here. And so that was something that I realized, that until you can actually see it, you can say like, oh, there's some work that needs to be done. It, like was just said, it lights a fire. Is like, hey, we need to get this work done. We need to actually get involved and look into this a little bit more. And so the research is something that has definitely impacted me.
Great. Well, I'm so excited to hear this. What about you? What about for you, Kimberly?
Similar to my peers, Jenise and Lola, right? Being able to dive deep into the research, seeing that there is a huge lack when we are adding terms for people of color, BIPOC families, especially and for my cohort and neurodivergent birthing people of color. Like there's such a lack.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I'm learning, or I'm gaining, or I took away, right, that deeper understanding of how to support neurodivergent birthing people of color, but also seeing that there is so much work to be done still. I think something else that I'm taking away that I hope continues after the fellowship is just living with a sense of connection and renewed purpose, being able to know that I'm not doing this work alone, and hopefully staying in contact with everyone would be really great, because I really feel that there is power in our collective voice as professionals of color pushing this field forward. So I hope to continue that afterwards.
I love that. Absolutely. Okay, so it's doing kind of what I'm like I know there's room for improvement in everything, right? But it's doing kind of the things, those things that I was hoping that it would do, right? As a PhD student, right? That's what drives you to want to do a PhD. So I hear some doctors like on this stream, right? Because it identifies like you have these questions, and then you go looking for the answers, and then you're like, there's not an answer for this. Like, I need to figure this out, right? And so I hope I'm hearing a little sparks of like some scholarship that you all hope to continue to push forward. And maybe this has been a catalyst or kind of just a seed to help, because we do need, I think what we have to understand is, for so long, and even for a lot of professionals of color, we have not been convinced that our lives and our experiences and how we experience the world around us is worth studying. And it is absolutely not worth studying, but it's imperative, right? It is imperative that we study the lives and the experiences and talk about the lives, experiences, stories, and how the world around us affects us and how we interact with it differently because of the bodies that we were born into, and what that means in the cultural context where we exist, right? So it's like imperative that the work has got to go forward. Everybody is not meant to be a researcher, but part of why I wanted people actually doing the work as part of this program is because I really do believe that there's this connective thread that we don't always make between people who are actually doing the work and people who are researching and publishing about the work, right? It's like you're seeing in real time what needs to be happening, and then going back to look for in the literature, like, how do I validate the need for something else to be happening? And you're not finding it there, right? Because y'all really know, right? You all really know. I want to thank you all for joining me for this amazing conversation. For those of you who will be in New Orleans for the PSI annual conference, these lovely, lovely fellows will be presenting their research projects on that first day of the conference, on that Friday. And they will be the closing keynote. So we hope that you will be able to come and stay for one or both of those things, so that you can hear about the work they've been doing, and also a little bit more about their experience as fellows. And you can meet them and shake their hands and get some tips for your own applications for the fellowship, which will be released at the beginning of July. But Kimberly Polanco, Jenise Catalina, Lola Price, thank you so much for joining me today. And for those of you out there who are watching and you want to learn more about the Alliance for People of Color, please follow us on our Social media outlets, on Instagram, we're at PSI Alliance. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find us the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance for People of Color, or PSI's Alliance for People of Color. Or go to postpartum.net, and I think it's under the Ways Get Involved tab. You'll find our homepage there. For those of you that are watching and you're looking for some resources, maybe you're not feeling quite like yourself, maybe you are concerned about somebody who you live with or who you love, and they might need some additional support, we're also able to provide that for you. So PSI has a helpline, and you'll see the number scrolling at the bottom. In English or Spanish, that's a warm line. Somebody will contact you within 48 hours after you call the line. And they will connect you with resources in your area. There's also a maternal mental health hotline. It's 833-TLC-MAMA, but you see the numbers scrolling by. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are clinical and trained counselors and therapists on the line that can help talk you through and then also connect you to resources. And over 60 languages spoken on that hotline. So please make sure, if it's you or for somebody you care about or you love, and you need some support, that's there for you. And if you are in crisis, meaning that you are in immediate danger or you feel like you might hurt yourself or harm someone, we want you to know you don't even have to dial 7 digits. It's 988 is the national crisis line. And so if somebody is there 24/7 and they're able to listen to you and then also connect you to further assistance if that is something that you find yourself in need of, right? We just want you to know that you are not alone. You are not to blame. And there, with help, there is healing, and you will get better. You will get better. Thank you to my lovely guests. And we look forward, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing all of them and spending some time with them in New Orleans. And I hope that those of you who haven't yet registered for our annual conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, that you are going to register soon and that you can meet them in person too, and benefit from all the other wonderful workshops that we'll have. And our meetup, our Alliance meetup too, where we get to hang and to network with one another. Okay, so we will see you. I don't know if we're going to see you in July because July is busy around PSI parts. But we will see you, definitely will see you in August for Coloring the Conversation again. And thank you all for being such a wonderful audience over the last 2.5 years since I have been hosting Coloring the Conversation. My communications manager, Patience Riley, is trying to bully me into continuing. I am the Oprah of the perinatal mental health world, but I feel like I got to make room for, Oprah number 2 or 3 or 4. Let's just share the wealth. All right. You all take care, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.